Hello, everyone. My name is Naama, and I will talk today about the Cassava trait ontology in CassavaBase. So the place where most people would start is by going to the search menu and select traits. And here you can search by the Cassava trait ontology terms, or by PostCompose Trades, and I will talk about the PostCompose Trades later. So you can search here by trait name or definition. So if we're searching for the term root color, you can see at the bottom the results, all the traits that match the term root color. If you click on the trait name, it will take you to a trait detail page, and you can see here several things. The term ID, this is a database identifier, the unique number, and the trait name, the unique trait name. Then each trait has a definition. The definition has to be detailed and include the method of measurement and the scale of measurement. We can also store optional synonyms for each term. These synonyms can be used for the trait search. If you search by a synonym, you should see the trait that has that synonym. Then traits have some properties. For example, the trait boiled storage root color, it's a visual trait with a scale of 1 to 3, which means you can only store the values 1, 2, and 3 in the database. And this is important for using a spreadsheet and recording your phenotypes, or using the Fieldbook app. It will only let you store those 3 values. Then at the bottom, you can see this little ontology tree. This is used mostly by curators. The ontology tree just shows the hierarchy of the term. You can see that traits used for phenotyping are called variables, and they have a parent term, a parent trait term. Going back to the Cassava trait search page, if you look at the search results, each trait has this little checkbox next to it. You can select the checkbox and then store the traits into a list. And you have here 2 options. You can store the traits in a new list, or you can add the traits to an existing list if you already have a list of traits in CassavaBase. These lists are very useful later on when you want to create a phenotyping spreadsheet or a file for the Fieldbook app to record phenotypes in the field. If you need a trait in your experiment and the trait cannot be found in the ontology, you can request to add a new trait. You can also request to modify an existing trait. For example, if you want to add synonyms, change the definition of a trait, or add something to it. When you click on the link here to the submission form, it will take you to a new page. And the first thing you will do here is select the Cassava ontology from the drop-down menu. Then we ask you to provide your name and organization. Next, you will need to type in a detailed trait name. You can see as you start to type the name of your trait, at the bottom, you will see an autocomplete list of existing traits in the ontology. This helps you check if your trait already exists in CassavaBase, or if something similar exists in the database. Next, you will have to choose a trait class. In this example, the trait starch content percentage is a quality trait. Then you have an option to add synonyms to your trait. And we ask you in the detailed trait definition box to provide as many details as possible. This helps us ensure that we store the correct trait in the database using exactly the method and the scale that you need for your breeding program. Then when you scroll further down the form, you have the option to add the method of measurement. In this case, there is a formula. So the formula is typed in here. And you can choose the measurement type. In this case, it's a unit, and the unit of measurement is percentage. If your trade does not have a unit, you have the option to choose categories. For example, if you have several categories, each one corresponds to a certain value, you can add those here. In this example, category 1 corresponds to the color yellow, category 2 to the color green, and so on. You can add here as many categories as you need. Next, you will need to select this little checkbox right here that you read and understood the submission guidelines written above here. Most people will submit the form using a public email. It's important that you provide your email so we can follow up with you in case we have any questions about your term request, or we can update you when the term is added to CassavaBase. When you click the submit button here, what happens behind the scenes is that this little form is sent to the curators of CassavaBase. This is what we call a ticket, and it has all the details you provided in the submission form, so we can look over it. And if needed, we can have this little discussion with the submitter of the trade if we have any questions or if we need to clarify anything. After the new trade is added to CassavaBase, it will appear in the website with a new trade ID. This ID can be used then for phenotyping experiments. And you can see here the name of the trade, the definition, and everything provided in the submission form. The Cassava trait ontology also appears in the crop ontology website that many of you are familiar with. We work in close collaboration with the crop ontology, but we ask that you submit new traits through CassavaBase and not through the crop ontology trait definition template, since we can update traits much quicker through CassavaBase. Crop ontology website will update their version of the Cassava trait ontology periodically, but not as frequently as through CassavaBase. So if you need to have a trait added quickly to use it in your experiments, we ask you to add the trait through the submission form in CassavaBase. Going back to the trait search page, we talked about searching the official Cassava trait ontology, but you also have an option to post-compose traits. We use the post-composing tool mostly in cases when people need to add large number of traits using time and date terms or different treatments. For example, looking at the trait change in weight after boiling computation percentage, we can measure this trait during several months of the year. And we can also apply different times of boiling to this trait. Here is another example for a post-composed trait, dry matter content percentage. We can measure this trait during different months of the year, and we can measure it looking at different treatments. For example, the root can be mashed, or it can be boiled, and so on. These post-composed traits are not part of the official Cassava trait ontology, but they are stored locally in CassavaBase, and they are public in CassavaBase for everyone to search and use in their experiments. To post-compose a new trait, you will go to the Analyze menu and select Compose a New Trait link at the bottom of the menu. This will take you to the Compose New Trait page, where you have several options. You will have to select the trait from the box down here. So in this example, we're choosing dry matter content percentage. You have here an option to choose an object, which is usually a subsection of the plant. And you have the option to choose an attribute, for example, mashed root. Next, you can choose time of year. We have here months, weeks, and days. And you also have an option to choose an event in case you have a certain breeding event when you measured your trait. For example, if the trait was measured after harvest or before harvest, and so on. If the combination of traits selected already exists in CassavaBase, you will see it here under the existing traits box. You can add the existing trait to one of your lists or create a new list. If the new trait does not exist in CassavaBase, you can submit it using this button here. The trait will appear under the new traits box. And once you click submit, the trait immediately appears in CassavaBase without the curation step. It will be assigned an ID. You can use this ID for your list and for your phenotyping experiments, and it will have the combination of terms that you selected in the post-composing tool. You will also be able to search for the post-composed trait immediately using this search tool. Overall, in CassavaBase, we have 380 Cassava trait ontology variables that can be used for phenotyping and 272 post-composed terms. These numbers are increasing continuously, and we're always happy to add new terms if you need them or help you find the trait you're looking for. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.